Climate. Rome has a Mediterranean climate, with hot, dry summers and mild, humid winters. Its average annual temperature is above 21 degrees Celsius during the day and 9 degrees Celsius at night. In the coldest month, January, the average temperature is 12.6 degrees Celsius during the day and 2.1 degrees Celsius at night. In the warmest month, August, the average temperature is 31.7 degrees Celsius during the day and 17.3 degrees Celsius at night. December, January and February are the coldest months, with a daily mean temperature of approximately 8 degrees Celsius. Temperatures during these months generally vary between 10 and 15 degrees Celsius during the day and between 3 and 5 degrees Celsius at night, with colder or warmer spells occurring frequently. Snowfall is rare but not unheard of, with light snow or flurries occurring on some winters, generally without accumulation, and major snowfalls on a very rare occurrence. The average relative humidity is 75%, varying from 72% in July to 77% in November. Sea temperatures vary from a low of 13.9 degrees Celsius in February to a high of 25.0 degrees Celsius in August. Religion. Much like the rest of Italy, Rome is predominantly Christian, and the city has been an important center of religion and pilgrimage for centuries. The base of the ancient Roman religion with the Pontifex Maximus and later the seat of the Vatican and the Pope. Before the arrival of the Christians in Rome, the Religio Romana was the major religion of the city in classical antiquity. The first gods held sacred by the Romans were Jupiter, the Most High, and Mars, the god of war, and father of Rome's twin founders, Romulus and Remus, according to tradition. Other deities such as Vesta and Minerva were honored. Rome was also the base of several mystery cults, such as Mithraism. Later, after Saint Peter and Saint Paul were martyred in the city, and the first Christians began to arrive, Rome became Christian, and the Old Street. Peter's Basilica was constructed in 313 AD. Despite some interruptions, Rome has for centuries been the home of the Roman Catholic Church and the Bishop of Rome, otherwise known as the Pope. Despite the fact that Rome is home to the Vatican City and Street. Peter's Basilica, Rome's cathedral is the Archbasilica of St. John Lateran, in the southeast of the city center. There are around 900 churches in Rome in total. Aside from the cathedral itself, some others of note include the Basilica di Santa Maria Maggiore, the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls, the Basilica di San Clement, San Carlo al Quattro Fontane and the Church of the Gessa. There are also the ancient catacombs of Rome underneath the city. Numerous highly important religious educational institutions are also in Rome, such as the Pontifical Lateran University, Pontifical Biblical Institute, Pontifical Gregorian University, and Pontifical Oriental Institute. Since the end of the Roman Republic, Rome is also the center of an important Jewish community, which was once based in Trastevere, and later in the Roman ghetto. There lies also the major synagogue in Rome, the Tempio Maggiore. Transport. Rome is at the center of the radial network of roads that roughly follow the lines of the ancient Roman roads which began at the Capitoline Hill and connected Rome with its empire. Today Rome is circled, at a distance of about 10 kilometers from the capital, by the Ring Road. Due to its location in the center of the Italian peninsula, Rome is the principal railway node for central Italy. Rome's main railway station, Termini, is one of the largest railway stations in Europe and the most heavily used in Italy, with around 400,000 travelers passing through every day. The second largest station in the city, Roma Tiburtina, has been redeveloped as a high-speed rail terminus. As well as frequent high-speed day trains to all major Italian cities, Rome is linked nightly by boat train sleeper services to Sicily, and internationally by overnight sleeper services to Munich and Vienna by BB Austrian Railways. Rome is served by 3 airports. The Intercontinental Leonardo da Vinci International Airport, Italy's chief airport, is located within the nearby Fiumicino, southwest of Rome. The older Rome Ciampino Airport is a joint civilian and military airport. It is commonly referred to as Ciampino Airport, as it is located beside Ciampino, southeast of Rome. A third airport, the Rome Ed Airport, is a small, low-traffic airport located about 6 kilometers north of the city center, which handles most helicopter and private flights. Although the city has its own quarter on the Mediterranean Sea, this has only a marina and a small channel harbor for fishing boats. The main harbour which serves Rome is Port of Civitavecchia, located about 62 kilometers northwest of the city. The city suffers from traffic problems largely due to this radial street pattern, making it difficult for Romans to move easily from the vicinity of one of the radial roads to another without going into the historic center or using the ring road. These problems are not helped by the limited size of Rome's metro system when compared to other cities of similar size. In addition, Rome has only 21 taxis for every 10,000 inhabitants, far below other major European cities. Chronic congestion caused by cars during the 1970s and 1980s led to restrictions being placed on vehicle access to the inner city center during the hours of daylight. Areas where these restrictions apply are known as limited traffic zones. More recently, heavy nighttime traffic in Trastevere, Testaccio and San Lorenzo has led to the creation of nighttime ZTLs in those districts. A three-line metro system called the Metropolitana operates in Rome. Construction on the first branch started in the 1930s. The line had been planned to quickly connect the main railway station with the newly planned E42 area in the southern suburbs, where 1942 the World Fair was supposed to be held. The event never took place because of war, but the area was later partly redesigned and renamed Euros in the 1950s to serve as a modern business district. The line was finally opened in 1955, and it is now the south part of the B line. The A line opened in 1980 from Ottaviano to Ananina stations, later extended in stages to Battistini. In the 1990s, an extension of the B line was opened from Termini to Rebibbia. This underground network is generally reliable as it is relatively short. The A and B lines intersect at Rome at Termini station. A new branch of the B line opened on the 13th of June, 2012, after an estimated building cost of €500 million. B1 connects to Line B at Piazza Bologna and has 4 stations over a distance of 3.9 kilometers. A third line, the C line, is under construction with an estimated cost of €3 billion and will have 30 stations over a distance of 25.5 kilometers. It will partly replace the existing Termini Pantano rail line. It will feature full automated, driverless trains. The first section with 15 stations connecting Pantano with the quarter of Centocelle in the eastern part of the city, opened on the 9th of November, 2014. The end of the work was scheduled in 2015, but archaeological findings often delay underground construction work. A fourth line, D line, is also planned. It will have 22 stations over a distance of 20 kilometers. The first section was projected to open in 2015 and the final sections before 2035, but due to the city's financial crisis, the project has been put on hold. Above-ground public transport in Rome is made up of a bus, tram and urban train network. The bus, tram, metro and urban railways network is run by ATUS. Full stop. The bus network has in excess of 350 bus lines and over 8,000 bus stops, whereas the more limited tram system has 39 kilometers of track and 192 stops. There is also one trolleybus line, opened in 2005, and additional trolleybus lines are planned. Economy. As the capital of Italy, Rome hosts all the principal institutions of the nation, including the Presidency of the Republic, the government, the parliament, the main judicial courts, and the diplomatic representatives of all the countries for the states of Italy and Vatican City. Many international institutions are located in Rome, notably cultural and scientific ones, such as the American Institute, the British School, the French Academy, the Scandinavian Institutes, and the German Archaeological Institute. There are also specialized agencies of the United Nations, such as the Food and Agriculture Organization. Rome also hosts major international and worldwide political and cultural organizations, such as the International Fund for Agricultural Development, World Food Programme, the NATO Defense College, and the International Center for the Study of the Preservation and Restoration of Cultural Property. According to the Gawk Study of World Cities, Rome is a Beta Plus city. The city was ranked in 2014 as 32nd in the Global Cities Index, the highest in Italy. With a 2005 GDP of €94, 376 billion, the city produces 6.7% of the national GDP, and its unemployment rate, lowered from 11% to 6.5% between 2001 and 2005, is now one of the lowest rates of all the European Union capital cities. Rome's economy grows at around 4.4% annually and continues to grow at a higher rate in comparison to any other city in the rest of the country. This means that were Rome a country, it would be the world's 52nd richest country by GDP, near to the size to that of Egypt. Rome also had a 2003 GDP per capita of €29,153, which was second in Italy, and is more than 134.1% of the EU average GDP per capita. Rome, on the whole, has the highest total earnings in Italy, reaching €47,076,890,463 in 2008. Yet, in terms of average workers' incomes, the city places itself ninth in Italy, with €24,509. On a global level, Rome's workers received the 30th highest wages in 2009, coming 3 places higher than in 2008, in which the city ranked 33rd. The Rome area had a GDP amounting to $167.8 billion, and $38,765 per capita. Although the economy of Rome is characterized by the absence of heavy industry, and it is largely dominated by services, high technology companies, research, construction and commercial activities, and the huge development of tourism are very dynamic and extremely important to its economy. Rome's international airport, Fiumicino, is the largest in Italy, and the city hosts the head offices of the vast majority of the major Italian companies, as well as the headquarters of 3 of the world's 100 largest companies, Enel, Eni, and Telecom Italia. Universities, national radio and television and the movie industry in Rome are also important parts of the economy. Rome is also the hub of the Italian film industry, thanks to the Cinecittà Studios, working since the 1930s. The city is also a center for banking and insurance as well as electronics, energy, transport, and aerospace industries. Numerous international companies and agencies headquarters, government ministries, conference centers, sports venues, and museums are located in Rome's principal business districts, the Esposizione Universale Roma, the Torino, the Magliana, the Parco de' Medici Laurentino and the so-called Tibetina Valley along the ancient Via Tibetina. History. Earliest history. While there have been discoveries of archaeological evidence of human occupation of the Rome area from approximately 14,000 years ago, the dense layer of much younger debris obscures Paleolithic and Neolithic sites. Evidence of stone tools, pottery, and stone weapons attest to about 10,000 years of human presence. Several excavations support the view that Rome grew from pastoral settlements on the Palatine Hill built above the area of the future Roman Forum. Between the end of the Bronze Age and the beginning of the Iron Age, each hill between the sea and the capital was topped by a village. However, none of them yet had an urban quality. Nowadays, there is a wide consensus that the city developed gradually through the aggregation of several villages around the largest one, placed above the Palatine. This aggregation was facilitated by the increase of agricultural productivity above the subsistence level, which also allowed the establishment of secondary and tertiary activities. These, in turn, boosted the development of trade with the Greek colonies of southern Italy. These developments, which according to archaeological evidence took place during the mid-8th century BC, can be considered as the birth of the city. Despite recent excavations at the Palatine Hill, the view that Rome was founded deliberately in the middle of the 8th century BC, as the legend of Romulus suggests, remains a fringe hypothesis. Legend of the founding of Rome. Traditional stories handed down by the ancient Romans themselves explain the earliest history of their city in terms of legend and myth. The most familiar of these myths, and perhaps the most famous of all Roman myths, is the story of Romulus and Remus, the twins who were suckled by a she-wolf. They decided to build a city, but after an argument, Romulus killed his brother and the city took his name. According to the Roman annalists, this happened on the 21st of April 753 BC. This legend had to be reconciled with a dual tradition, set earlier in time, that had the Trojan refugee Aeneas escaped to Italy and found the line of Romans through his son Iulus, the namesake of the Julio-Claudian dynasty. This was accomplished by the Roman poet Virgil in the 1st century BC. In addition, Strabo mentions an older story, that the city was an Arcadian colony founded by Evander. Strabo also writes that Lucius Coelius Antipater believed that Rome was founded by Greeks. Monarchy and Republic. After the foundation by Romulus according to a legend, Rome was ruled for a period of 244 years by a monarchical system, initially with sovereigns of Latin and Sabine origin, later by Etruscan kings. The tradition handed down 7 kings: Romulus, Numa Pompilius, Tullus Hostilius, Ancus Marcius, Tarquinius Priscus, Sevius Tullius and Lucius Tarquinius Superbus. In 509 BC, the Romans expelled the last king from their city and established an oligarchic republic. Rome then began a period characterized by internal struggles between patricians and plebeians, and by constant warfare against the populations of central Italy, Etruscans, Latins, Volsi, Equi, and Marsi. After becoming master of Latium, Rome led several wars whose result was the conquest of the Italian peninsula, from the central area up to Magna Graecia. The 3rd and 2nd century BC saw the establishment of Roman hegemony over the Mediterranean and the Balkans, through the 3 Punic Wars fought against the city of Carthage and the 3 Macedonian Wars against Macedonia. The first Roman provinces were established at this time: Sicily, Sardinia and Corsica, Hispania, Macedonia, Achaea and Africa. From the beginning of the 2nd century BC, power was contested between 2 groups of aristocrats, the Optimates, representing the conservative part of the Senate, and the populace, which relied on the help of the plebs to gain power. In the same period, the bankruptcy of the small farmers and the establishment of large slave estates caused large-scale migration to the city. The continuous warfare led to the establishment of a professional army, which turned out to be more loyal to its generals than to the Republic. Because of this, in the second half of the 2nd century and during the 1st century BC there were conflicts both abroad and internally, after the failed attempt of social reform of the populace Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus. And the war against Jugurtha, there was a civil war from which the general Sulla emerged victorious. A major slave revolt under Spartacus followed, and then the establishment of the first triumvirate with Caesar, Pompey and Crassus. The conquest of Gaul made Caesar immensely powerful and popular, which led to a second civil war against the Senate and Pompey. After his victory, Caesar established himself as dictator for life. His assassination led to a second triumvirate among Octavian, Mark Antony and Lepidus, and to another civil war between Octavian and Antony. Empire. In 27 BC, Octavian became Princeps Civitatis and took the title of Augustus, founding the Principate, a diarchy between the Princeps and the Senate. During the reign of Nero, 2/3 of the city was ruined after the Great Fire of Rome, and the persecution of Christians commenced. Rome was established as a de facto empire, which reached its greatest expansion in the 2nd century under the Emperor Trajan. Rome was confirmed as Caput Mundi, i.e., the capital of the known world, an expression which had already been used in the Republican period. During its first 2 centuries, the empire was ruled by emperors of the Julio-Claudian, Flavian, and Antonine dynasties. This time was also characterized by the spread of the Christian religion, preached by Jesus Christ in Judea in the first half of the 1st century and popularized by his apostles through the empire and beyond. The Antonine Age is considered the zenith of the empire, whose territory ranged from the Atlantic Ocean to the Euphrates and from Britain to Egypt. After the end of the Severan dynasty in 235, the empire entered into a 50-year period known as the crisis of the 3rd century, during which there were numerous putches by generals who sought to secure the region of the empire they were entrusted with due to the weakness of central authority in Rome. There was the so-called Gallic Empire from 260 to 274 and the revolts of Zenobia and her father from the mid-260s which sought to fend off Persian incursions. Some regions, Britain, Spain, and North Africa, were hardly affected. Instability caused economic deterioration, and there was a rapid rise in inflation as the government debased the currency in order to meet expenses. The Germanic tribes along the Rhine and north of the Balkans made serious, uncoordinated incursions from the 250s 280s that were more like giant raiding parties rather than attempts to settle. The Persian Empire invaded from the east several times during the 230s to 260s but were eventually defeated. Emperor Diocletian undertook the restoration of the state. He ended the Principate and introduced the Tetrarchy which sought to increase state power. The most marked feature was the unprecedented intervention of the state down to the city level, whereas the state had submitted a tax demand to a city and allowed it to allocate the charges. From his reign the state did this down to the village level. In a vain attempt to control inflation, he imposed price controls which did not last. He or Constantine regionalized the administration of the empire, which fundamentally changed the way it was governed by creating regional dioceses. The existence of regional fiscal units from 286 served as the model for this unprecedented innovation. The emperor quickened the process of removing military command from governors. Henceforth, civilian administration and military command would be separate. He gave governors more fiscal duties and placed them in charge of the army logistical support system as an attempt to control it by removing the support system from its control. Diocletian ruled the eastern half, residing in Nicomedia. In 296, he elevated Maximian to Augustus of the western half, where he ruled mostly from Mediolanum when not on the move. In 292, he created two junior emperors, the Caesars, one for each Augustus, Constantius for Britain, Gaul, and Spain, whose seat of power was in Trier, and Galerius in Semium in the Balkans. The appointment of a Caesar was not unknown. Diocletian tried to turn into a system of non-dynastic succession. Upon abdication in 305, the Caesars succeeded and they, in turn, appointed two colleagues for themselves. After the abdication of Diocletian and Maximian in 305 and a series of civil wars between rival claimants to imperial power, during the years 306 to 313, the tetrarchy was abandoned. Constantine the Great undertook a major reform of the bureaucracy, not by changing the structure but by rationalizing the competencies of the several ministries during the years 325 to 330. After he defeated Licinius, emperor in the east, at the end of 324. The so-called Edict of Milan of 313, actually a fragment of a letter from Licinius to the governors of the eastern provinces, granted freedom of worship to everyone, including Christians, and ordered the restoration of confiscated church properties upon petition to the newly created vicars of dioceses. He funded the building of several churches and allowed clergy to act as arbitrators in civil suits. He transformed the town of Byzantium into his new residence, which, however, was not officially anything more than an imperial residence like Milan or Trier or Nicomedia until given a city prefect in May 359 by Constantius II, Constantinople. Christianity in the form of the Nicene Creed became the official religion of the empire in 380, via the Edict of Thessalonica issued in the name of three emperors, Gratian, Valentinian II, and Theodosius I, with Theodosius clearly the driving force behind it. He was the last emperor of a unified empire. After his death in 395, his sons, Arcadius and Honorius, divided the empire into a western and an eastern part. The seat of government in the Western Roman Empire was transferred to Ravenna after the siege of Milan in 402. During the 5th century, the emperors from the 430s mostly resided in the capital city, Rome. Rome, which had lost its central role in the administration of the empire, was sacked in 410 by the Visigoths led by Alaric I, but very little physical damage was done, most of which were repaired. What could not be so easily replaced were portable items such as outwork in precious metals and items for domestic use. The popes embellished the city with large basilicas, such as Santa Maria Maggiore. The population of the city had fallen from 800,000 to 450 to 500,000 by the time the city was sacked in 455 by Genseric, king of the Vandals. The weak emperors of the 5th century could not stop the decay, leading to the deposition of Romulus Augustus on the 22nd of August 476, which marked the end of the Western Roman Empire and, for many historians, the beginning of the Middle Ages. The decline of the city's population was caused by the loss of grain shipments from North Africa, from 440 onward, and the unwillingness of the senatorial class to maintain donations to support a population that was too large for the resources available. Even so, strenuous efforts were made to maintain the monumental center, the Palatine, and the largest baths, which continued to function until the Gothic siege of 537. The large baths of Constantine on the Quirinale were even repaired in 443, and the extent of the damage exaggerated and dramatized. However, the city gave an appearance overall of shabbiness and decay because of the large abandoned areas due to population decline. The population declined to 500,000 by 452 and 100,000 by 500 AD. After the Gothic siege of 537, the population dropped to 30,000 but had risen to 90,000 by the papacy of Gregory the Great. The population decline coincided with the general collapse of urban life in the West in the 5th and 6th centuries, with few exceptions. Subsidized state grain distributions to the poorer members of society continued right through the 6th century and probably prevented the population from falling further. The figure of 450,000 to 500,000 is based on the amount of POC, £3,629,000. Distributed to poorer Romans during 5 winter months at the rate of 5 Roman lbs per person per month, enough for 145,000 persons or 1/4 or 1/3 of the total population. Grain distribution to 80,000 ticket holders at the same time suggests 400,000. Middle Ages. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 AD, Rome was first under the control of Odoacer and then became part of the Ostrogothic kingdom before returning to East Roman control after the Gothic War, which devastated the city in 546 and 550. Its population declined from more than 1 million in 210 AD to 500,000 in 273 to 35,000 after the Gothic War, reducing the sprawling city to groups of inhabited buildings interspersed among large areas of ruins. Vegetation, vineyards and market gardens. It is generally thought the population of the city until 300 AD was 1 million, declining to 750 to 800,000 in 400 AD, 450 to 500,000 in 450 AD and down to 80 to 100,000 in 500 AD. The Bishop of Rome, called the Pope, was important since the early days of Christianity because of the martyrdom of both the apostles Peter and Paul there. The bishops of Rome were also seen as the successors of Peter, who is considered the first bishop of Rome. The city thus became of increasing importance as the center of the Catholic Church. After the Lombard invasion of Italy, the city remained nominally Byzantine, but in reality, the popes pursued a policy of equilibrium between the Byzantines, the Franks, and the Lombards. In 729, the Lombard king Liutprand donated the North Latium town of Sutri to the church, starting its temporal power. In 756, Pepin the Shot, after having defeated the Lombards, gave the Pope temporal jurisdiction over the Roman Duchy and the Exarchate of Ravenna, thus creating the Papal States. Since this period, 3 powers tried to rule the city: the Pope, the nobility, and the Frankish king, as king of the Lombards, patricius, and emperor. These 3 parties were a characteristic of Roman life during the entire Middle Ages. On Christmas night of 800, Charlemagne was crowned in Rome as Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire by Pope Leo III. On that occasion, the city hosted for the first time the 2 powers whose struggle for control was to be a constant of the Middle Ages. In 846, Muslim Arabs unsuccessfully stormed the city's walls, but managed to loot St. Peter's and St. Paul's Basilica, both outside the city wall. After the decay of Carolingian power, Rome fell prey to feudal chaos. Several noble families fought against the Pope, the Emperor, and each other. These were the times of Theodora and her daughter Marozia, concubines and mothers of several popes, and of Crescentius, a powerful feudal lord, who fought against the emperors Otto II and Otto III. The scandals of this period forced the papacy to reform itself. The election of the Pope was reserved to the cardinals, and reform of the clergy was attempted. The driving force behind this renewal was the monk Ildebrando d'Alciana, who once elected pope under the name of Gregory VII became involved into the investiture controversy against Emperor Henry IV. Subsequently, Rome was sacked and burned by the Normans under Robert Guiscard, who had entered the city in support of the Pope, then besieged in Castel Sant'Angelo. During this period, the city was autonomously ruled by a senator or patrizio. In the 12th century, this administration, like other European cities, evolved into the commune, a new form of social organization controlled by the new wealthy classes. Pope Lucius II fought against the Roman commune, and the struggle was continued by his successor Pope Eugenius III. By this stage, the commune, allied with the aristocracy, was supported by Arnaldo da Brescia, a monk who was a religious and social reformer. After the Pope's death, Arnaldo was taken prisoner by Adrianus IV, which marked the end of the commune's autonomy. Under Pope Innocent III, whose reign marked the apogee of the papacy, the commune liquidated the Senate, and replaced it with a senator, who was subject to the Pope. In this period, the papacy played a role of secular importance in Western Europe, often acting as arbitrators between Christian monarchs and exercising additional political powers. In 1266, Charles of Anjou, who was heading south to fight the Hohenstaufen on behalf of the Pope, was appointed senator. Charles founded the Sapienza, the University of Rome. In that period the Pope died, and the cardinals, summoned in Viterbo, could not agree on his successor. This angered the people of the city, who then unroofed the building where they met and imprisoned them until they had nominated the new pope. This marked the birth of the conclave. In this period the city was also shattered by continuous fights between the aristocratic families, Annibaldi, Caetani, Colonna, Orsini, Conti, nested in their fortresses built above ancient Roman edifices, fought each other to control the papacy. Pope Boniface VIII, born Caetani, was the last pope to fight for the Church's universal domain. He proclaimed a crusade against the Colonna family and, in 1300, called for the first Jubilee of Christianity, which brought millions of pilgrims to Rome. However, his hopes were crushed by the French King Philip the Fair, who took him prisoner and killed him in Anagni. Afterwards, a new pope faithful to the French was elected, and the papacy was briefly relocated to Avignon. During this period Rome was neglected, until a plebeian man, Cola di Renzo, came to power. An idealist and a lover of ancient Rome, Cola dreamed about a rebirth of the Roman Empire. After assuming power with the title of Tribuno, his reforms were rejected by the populace. Forced to flee, Cola returned as part of the entourage of Cardinal Albornoz, who was charged with restoring the Church's power in Italy. Back in power for a short time, Cola was soon lynched by the populace, and Albornoz took possession of the city. In 1377, Rome became the seat of the papacy again under Gregory XI. The return of the Pope to Rome in that year unleashed the Western Schism, and for the next 40 years, the city was affected by the divisions which rocked the Church. Early modern history. In 1418, the Council of Constance settled the Western Schism, and a Roman Pope, Martin V, was elected. This brought to Rome a century of internal peace, which marked the beginning of the Renaissance. The ruling popes until the first half of the 16th century, from Nicholas V, founder of the Vatican Library, to Pius II, humanist and literate, from Sixtus IV, a warrior pope, to Alexander VI, immoral and nepotist. From Julius II, soldier and patron, to Leo X, who gave his name to this period, all devoted their energy to the greatness and the beauty of the eternal city and to the patronage of the arts. During those years, the center of the Italian Renaissance moved to Rome from Florence. Majestic works, as the new St. Peter's Basilica, the Sistine Chapel and Ponte Sisto were created. To accomplish that, the popes engaged the best artists of the time, including Michelangelo, Perugino, Raphael, Ghirlandaio, Luca Signorelli, Botticelli, and Cosimo Rosselli. The period was also infamous for papal corruption, with many popes fathering children, and engaging in nepotism and simony. The corruption of the popes and the huge expenses for their building projects led, in part, to the Reformation and, in turn, the Counter-Reformation. Under extravagant and rich popes, Rome was transformed into a center of art, poetry, music, literature, education and culture. Rome became able to compete with other major European cities of the time in terms of wealth, grandeur, the arts, learning and architecture. The Renaissance period changed the face of Rome dramatically, with works like the Pietà by Michelangelo and the frescoes of the Borgia apartments. Rome reached the highest point of splendor under Pope Julius II and his successors Leo X and Clement VII, both members of the Medici family. In this 20-year period, Rome became one of the greatest centers of art in the world. The old St. Peter's Basilica built by Emperor Constantine the Great was demolished and a new one begun. The city hosted artists like Ghirlandaio, Perugino, Botticelli and Bramante, who built the Temple of San Pietro in Montorio and planned a great project to renovate the Vatican. Raphael, who in Rome became one of the most famous painters of Italy, created frescoes in the Villa Farnesina, the Raphael's rooms, plus many other famous paintings. Michelangelo started the decoration of the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel and executed the famous statue of the Moses for the tomb of Julius II.